All right, Larry Kruger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. This video also brought to you by Marin Auto Glass, marinautoglass.com, 415-883-3030, and Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. Check them out in Pacific Grove. Call Anthony Catania at 831-521-5264. All right, let's talk a little 49ers. Kind of an interesting rumor has popped up in the last 24 hours, and that is according to Mark Cabali of The Athletic, the 49ers at least had or have interest in free agent wide receiver Tyler Boyd. Now, I've been a Tyler Boyd fan for a long time. He was a great player at the University of Pittsburgh. I mean, not good, not very good, great. He was tremendous. And what he really has is he's got good size, but he's got great ball skills. That's really the key. And according to this report, the Niners have shown or are showing interest in free agent wide receiver Tyler Boyd. And as we sit here on the 2nd of April, what's surprising to me is how many qualified and really talented wide receivers, veteran wide receivers, are available in the free agent marketplace. So that kind of creates an interesting dynamic. Now, according to The Athletic, talks between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Tyler Boyd have fallen apart. What does that mean for the Niners? I don't know. But let's talk a little bit about Boyd. Boyd's an 8-year veteran. He's currently a free agent. He's 29. He's surpassed at least 1,000 yards receiving in both 2018 and 2019. Those are his two probably best years as far as yardage. He's played at least 70% of the snaps in 6 seasons. So he's a good sized receiver, about 6'2". And he's operated out of the slot. So it kind of makes you wonder, is he a replacement for Jawan Jennings if Jennings were to bolt or if the Niners were to trade Jennings? He Shanahan likes that big slot receiver, and Jennings has manned that role. But maybe Boyd could be his replacement. I thought Boyd looked almost borderline unstoppable in the game against the Bengals earlier this year at Levi's, where he caught 3 balls for 40 yards and he had a touchdown. But it just seemed like, he could catch anything at will. And he could be a plan B if Jennings signs an offer sheet elsewhere. Spot Track projects Tyler Boyd to make about $8.7 million. So it's possible he's asking for more than that. He was a second-round pick in 2016 out of Pittsburgh, and he had a great career in college. I mean, he's just an awesome receiver, just has tremendous ball skills. And, what hits his hands stays caught. He had 90 receptions, by the way, in 2019. So this guy's played on a team with Jamar Chase, with Tyler Higgins, so maybe he wouldn't mind being the third guy on the 49ers. Now, then there's the whole Brandon Aiyuk side of this. And I don't know where this fits in, and I don't know how credible or not credible this report is, but NFL Notify on Twitter is reporting today that the 49ers are reportedly, quote, very likely to trade Brandon Aiyuk because the two sides are far apart on a new deal. And then it goes on to say the 49ers believe it is to their advantage to wait to trade until draft day to see who's available so that they can ensure that they get their guy in the draft. Now, the question is, who is their guy, right? And the Niners have been talking to teams, according to this NFL Notify Twitter report, to try to set up terms for what they need back for Aiyuk in these days and weeks leading into the draft. All right, so there's a lot there. One, as far as Boyd is concerned, love him. He'd be a great addition. It does kind of tell you what they're looking for. They're looking for a receiver with some size and some ball skills. They want to make sure that when Brock Purdy throws you the ball that you catch it, so they don't want just some burner who can't catch a cold. They want guys with legitimate ball skills and legitimate receiving ability with a big catch radius, all the things that you would typically want in a receiver, but that's what they're looking for. That's what Tyler Boyd is. So maybe that's what they're looking for. Maybe the interest of the rumor about Boyd tells you what they're interested in. That's one. Number two, this NFL Notify report. I don't know how credible or not credible NFL Notify is on Twitter. They got a lot of followers. But I will say this. This doesn't sound outrageous to me, that they're very likely to move Aiyuk. I think Niner fans have better come to grips with this reality. They're going to be paying their quarterback somewhere between 25 times and 50 times what he made this year, next year. So there's going to have to be some offloading of talent. There's going to have to be some offloading of contracts. We saw it with Eric Armstead, and we're going to see more. Probably Juice, maybe one of these receivers. It's hard for me to envision the Niners while paying Brock Purdy, $40 million or something, 40 times what they paid him this year, that they're going to have enough money to have $6 million, or I should say $60 million tied up in wide receivers on a team that runs a lot. That seems unlikely. So I know we all love Aiyuk, and I know nobody wants to see him dealt, myself included. But there's going to be some pain involved in getting under the cap if you're going to pay Brock Purdy $45 million. And this could be part of that pain. Now, if you could somehow trade Brandon Aiyuk for a first-round draft choice of whatever kind, 18, 19, 20, let's say it's the Steelers pick at 20, and then replace him in free agency with Tyler Boyd, and then try to replace him in the draft somehow with, some receiver that you love. That's not crazy. I mean, it might be the way to go, especially if you can get Boyd at a decent number. Now, many of these reports is the 49ers had interest in Tyler Boyd. Not have, had. So you kind of wonder, is this ship sailed? Are they no longer really showing interest in Boyd, or is that just like, a story in the last week? They showed interest and they're moving on. I don't know. I don't know the story there, but to me, it's really interesting that they potentially could make a move and move Brandon Aiyuk and wind up with a first round pick. Now let's talk a little bit about, the bottom of the first round. The Jaguars pick at 17. If, there's talk that they want Aiyuk. In the mock, I'm looking at J.C. Latham from Alabama, who would be a plug and play right tackle for the next decade. He's going 18. So in that realm, in this mock draft, if you traded for 17, you could technically draft J.C. Latham out of Alabama and plug him in at right tackle. That would be spectacular. You could also draft Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas is rumored to go 20 to the Steelers in the mock I'm looking at. So would you trade Brandon Aiyuk, sign Tyler Boyd, and draft Brian Thomas? Is the Boyd Thomas combo as good or better than Aiyuk? So I mean, these are all things to look at for sure. I don't know how it's all going to come down. I don't know how credible or not credible that report is. From NFL draft. What is it? NFL Notify on Twitter. But it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. I'll say this: Boyd is legit. Boyd is a good route runner with good size, who's underrated. And every week you talk about Chase. Every week you talk about Higgins, and then you look up and Tyler Boyd's been really, really good. So it's not like Tyler Boyd is some schlep. He's pretty good. Now he's not Brandon Aiyuk good, but he's a pretty good player. I mean, in his own right. If you say, well, what kind of player is Tyler Boyd? He's a pretty good player. I mean, it's not like he's a guy that doesn't do anything. This guy does a lot. So I mean, he's playing on a team with Higgins and Jamar Chase, and so I think in a lot of ways he's kind of hidden. But Boyd is a solid receiver. There's no doubt about it. And to get him and to plug him in, that would be a good thing. As far as some of the details on the NFL notify rumor that the Niners are, looking to trade Aiyuk because the sides are far apart. I mean, if the Niners are really in this fiscal, crunch and Ayuk's looking to get broken off, they probably are far apart on a new deal. So that's not outrageous. And that they want to wait till draft day to see who's available so they can ensure they get their guy. That makes all the sense in the world. If you're going to move a foundation piece like Brandon Aiyuk, you want to make sure that you're not just trading him for a draft slot that's 3 picks behind where your guy went. You want to make sure your guy's there. That makes sense. And the fact that the Niners, according to the reporter, have been talking to teams to kind of set up the terms for what they need back in Aiyuk, that makes sense too. So even though there's lots of people going, oh, that's not a credible report, and it may not be, it sure makes sense. It sure makes sense on a lot of fronts. And all I would say is I like Tyler Boyd. And if the plan is to sign Tyler Boyd and go with him instead of Aiyuk, and then turn the Aiyuk, turn Aiyuk into a first round draft choice, or maybe a couple of picks or whatever, and then select a receiver or a lineman that you really really like. That might be the route to go. That might be the route to go. And I know there's a lot of people going, it's not credible. They're not going to get rid of Brandon Aiyuk. I just think Niner fans need to wrap their heads around the concept of the Niners are going to have to pay Brock Purdy 50 times roughly what he made this year. And that means there's going to have to be some really good players who make some really good money who are not going to be 49ers going forward after this year. So that's their reality. Who's it going to be? And you have Debo, you have Jennings, you got deep receiver free agent market, you got a deep free agent draft cycle for the third or fourth year in a row. If you said to me what's going to happen, I would have said they're going to re-sign Aiyuk and they're going to trade Debo next offseason. But they may be in a more desperate cap situation than I even realize, and they may be on the verge of dealing Brandon Aiyuk. I'll say this: if you could get a first and sign Boyd, it would make the trading of Aiyuk a little bit more palatable. That's for sure. That's for sure. All right. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.